Hi, welcome to 7 Facts. We often talk about the United States of America, but we rarely think about the actual states that make up this union. Well, this series is aiming to explore every single state and territory of Earth's most powerful country. If you want to check out the other states, click on the playlist and start watching. Also, remember to subscribe as I upload a new video every Wednesday and Saturday. In today's episode, we're gonna talk about Michigan, so without any further ado, here are its 7 facts. Michigan, meaning large lake in the Ojibwe language, became the 26th state of the Union in 1837. But prior to achieving statehood, Michigan almost went to war with Ohio due to a territorial dispute. It went something like this. The Michigan Territory took issue with Ohio, claiming the mouth of the Maumee River in Toledo as its own property. Things heated up in 1836 when militia forces from both sides marched into the wilderness to oppose one another. Luckily, they never came in contact, and the only casualty of this dispute was a sheriff who got stabbed in the thigh by the son of an Ohio military officer who was trying to rescue his father from a Michigan jail. In order to quickly solve this issue, Congress insisted Michigan accept the boundary line and cede Toledo in order to gain statehood. They reluctantly accepted. The death penalty is still practiced in quite a few countries, including the United States, but not in Michigan. In fact, this state was the first to ban capital punishment in 1847. After Detroit bar owner Stephen Simmons was hanged for murdering his wife in 1830, newspapers and religious leaders began to criticize this brutal and primitive form of justice and petitioned for its abolishment. The final straw was another case where another man who was hanged was later found to be completely innocent. From that moment, the public movement became so influential that the state legislature had no choice but to ban the practice. However, it needs to be said that there was one exception to this ban up until 1963. If you were found guilty of treason, you could still be legally executed. Michigan was an early and outspoken opponent of slavery. The people of this state welcomed refugees from the Underground Rail, an illegal network of safe houses that helped escaped slaves reach freedom. Their belief in freedom for all was so strong that when former slave Adam Crosswhite and his family fled Kentucky and settled in Marshall, Michigan, the citizens actually stopped and jailed the Kentuckian slave catchers that came searching for him. 300 people gathered in front of Crosswhite's house, preventing any attempt to take the family back to Kentucky. This gave the Crosswhites the chance to run towards Canada and escape slavery for good. Now, this doesn't mean that racism was not a problem in Michigan, because it was, but their stance on the issue of slavery sticks out in the history books to this day. Ever heard of a city called Battle Creek? Probably not, so you might be surprised to learn that this was once the unofficial capital of breakfast cereals. The city was home to the Battle Creek Sanitarium founded by Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. His brother, Will Keith Kellogg, had worked for John at the sanitarium but frankly was tired of living in his brother's shadow. So he left, trying to make it on his own as a broom salesman, but he ultimately failed and returned to the sanitarium. While working in the lab, Will spilled liquefied cornmeal on a heating device that cooked the product and rendered it to flakes. He tasted the flakes, added some milk, and gave it to the patients. The demand exceeded his expectations, so he soon left and founded his own company. Today, that company's revenue is numbered in the billions, and the Kellogg's brand and its cornflakes are among the most well-recognized American products throughout the world. Michigan used to have a thriving and large lumber industry. This inextricably tied the state's economy to the production of carriages and wagons, which then would give way to the automobile. Henry Ford's Model T became the standard for car makers to follow, and it was first built in Detroit. Ford's assembly line ingenuity and production cleverness came at a price. Workers in his Detroit area factories experienced a high turnover due to the repetitive nature of their tasks. Eager to keep his employees happy, Ford paid them $5 a day, double what a typical auto plant worker made in 1913. They now earned enough to actually buy a Model T of their own. At one point, Michigan held more than 75% of the world's car factories, and all of those auto plants became crucial during World War II. Many automakers converted their resources into providing jeeps, tanks, and other combat tools to Allied forces. Unfortunately, by the second half of the 20th century, competition and automation meant that these factories and their suppliers started to leave Detroit, leaving a city that is today on the brink of bankruptcy with literally thousands of abandoned buildings and less than half of its former population of 1.8 million people. Ever heard of Motown or Motown Records? You probably have, but you don't know much about it. This company introduced some of the most influential artists of the 20th century, including Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, and Lionel Richie. The company was founded in 1959 by Berry Gordy in Detroit using $800 he borrowed from his family. During the 1960s, Motown achieved spectacular success for a small record company. 79 records in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. For many decades, Motown was the highest earning African American business in the United States. Michigan's capital city is Lansing, a city of 116,000 people. But only one city comes to mind when thinking about Michigan, and that of course is Detroit. So let's talk a bit more about Motor City, although that nickname doesn't really apply anymore. As I said earlier, the auto industry expanded really fast in Detroit, and with it, the city's population exploded. By the 1950s, 1.85 million people lived here, making Detroit the fourth largest US city. But the city relied almost entirely on the auto industry, and when it declined, so did Detroit. Today, less than 700,000 people live here, which resulted in severe urban decay and thousands of empty buildings. In 2013, it had to file for bankruptcy with a debt of over $18.5 billion. Today, the city is investing in city services and revitalizing the cityscape, and now is mentioned as a city of renaissance, but there's still a long way to go before it'll ever reach its former glory. So these were 7 facts about Michigan. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Don't forget to share your thoughts downstairs in the comment section. If you'd like to support this channel even more, you can visit my Patreon page by clicking on the icon now and make your contribution there. Any amount is greatly appreciated. I hope to see you next time. Bye.